Hi, welcome back to Community Conversations. I'm Tina Howard. Happy 2019. For our first show of the year, we have Dr. Charles Williams with us today. And welcome, Chuck.
Thank you. Thank you for asking me.
And thank you. And just so you know, he asked me to call him Chuck. So
I did. Thank you. That's great.
So Chuck is a doctor of psychology, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
With family therapy?
Right. I'm licensed as a psychologist and as a marriage and family therapist.
That's what I was trying to name. Okay.
Yeah.
And so that means that you meet with people in your career. You have met with people and you counsel them.
Mm-hmm.
And we're just jumping straight into career, then we'll back up. But as a licensed family therapist and psychologist, you were able to meet with people and hear about their thoughts, their needs, and sort of counsel them through things.
Absolutely. So most of my day is spent in 1 hour at a time with an individual, a couple, or a family.
So this is perfect for you.
8 to 10 hours a day.
Oh, wow.
So sometimes people go, how in the world do you sit there and talk to people for 8 or 10 hours a day? And I don't know. I did it for 42 years, but
wow.
It was a lot of fun.
42 years. So this 1 hour increments can be like a piece of cake for you.
Maybe.
Except that
I'm usually on the other side. I'm on your side of the table.
That's right. Well, it's a pleasure to have you here today, and we'd like to hear all about you, whatever it is that you want to tell us about. Let us start with where you were born, because I know it was not Hart County.
It was not. I was born in a small town near Philadelphia. That's where my parents grew up and met. And we moved immediately with my father's company, Monsanto Chemistry at the time, to Alabama. And then shortly thereafter to Greenville, South Carolina.
Philadelphia to Alabama?
That was culture shock, I'm sure, to them, but I was too young to know.
You were a kid, a baby, so you didn't know. So
sure.
For all practical purposes, you're a Southerner, right?
Fundamentally.
But for your parents at that age in their life, did they grow up in the Northeast?
They did. They grew up in that area. Their family, what's left of them, are still there.
Okay, so you still have family up there?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then Alabama, and from Alabama to Greenville?
To Greenville, South Carolina.
Now, Greenville was not a big city back in the day.
It was not. I remember when it was not a city that people went to visit regularly like it is now.
Yeah.
I mean, they've really done a lot to it. It's a destination city now.
It's wonderful. We call it Charleston without trees.
Exactly.
And water.
That's right. But yeah, I moved there probably about the time Lake Hartwell started filling up.
Okay, so you were in school. You were middle school or high school at that point.
Exactly.
Okay.
And I remember
what did you think of going to Greenville?
Well, I didn't like it because I had a girlfriend at the time.
Oh.
So it wasn't my idea, but it turned out really well.
So you started to say Greenville, when you moved to Greenville, there was really nothing.
No, it was a very small town, maybe 200,000 to 400,000 people.
See, it seemed like a big town.
Probably 250,000 people at the time.
But they didn't have all of the amenities that they have now.
They did not. I remember cruising down Main Street of Greenville with a lot of other high school kids, and it was not a very pretty place. I actually saw a clip of that a couple of weeks ago on the news about what it used to look like before they did all the changes and planted all the trees and put in the Reedy River Bridge and that, whatever they call that, beautiful place now.
Beautiful now.
Yes, it is.
But back then it was just a small town Main Street and you just cruised through it. So you were in high school there. You went to Wade Hampton High School, and you had siblings.
I'm the oldest of 3 boys.
So you're the oldest.
Yeah.
What was your role in the family with your siblings?
Probably, be a good kid, make your parents proud, take care of your brothers, set the example. Yeah.
So you were a little paternal because you had to take care of the brothers. You had to set the example.
I was probably a born peacekeeper.
A peacekeeper.
Right, exactly.
That's good. A peacemaker.
Peacemaker, maybe. Which is why, it's a nice segue into counseling.
It really is.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Now we know how you got into counseling, sort of.
Kind of.
Being the peacemaker. Were your brothers a lot like you, or were they different? Or
Well, one of them was 1 year younger.
Okay,
And
so that's close
he and I
in
did
age.
everything together. We were kind of best friends. We played sports together. We built forts together. We went camping together. My youngest brother is actually 10 years younger.
Okay, so almost you and your brother, and then the young brother.
Yeah, he was the only child.
Yeah, yeah, he was. He had 3 dads.
He did.
That's funny. So, if you were the peacekeeper, who were the other brothers?
Well, my middle brother, as typical of a lot of middle children, had a bit of a temper. He was pretty hot-headed, impulsive, always getting himself not necessarily into trouble, but having accidents. And so I was always there trying to, rescue him in some form or fashion.
But he could do that because he had you.
Well, that's true. I remember one day we were sitting in the pool across the street in a neighbor's house, and he took a hose pipe and stuck it in a milk bottle. Remember the milk bottles?
Yeah.
To fill it up, and then he couldn't get it out.
Uh-oh.
And we tried to yank the hose out of it, and finally I just had to turn around and run because it blew up. And we had to take him to the hospital.
He was cut up from the glass?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, you were busy then if
Busy.
you had a brother who was into all that stuff.
That's right.
I had some neighbors like that growing up, and there were 3 boys next door, and the middle one was just exactly like that.
Mm-hmm.
He was always into something and getting hurt. And the younger brother was just the baby brother?
He was just a baby
happy-go-lucky?
brother at that point. He wanted to hang out with us, but really couldn't most of the time.
Yeah, because the age difference is too
Yes.
much. So did you and your brother hang out in high school? Or did y'all seek different groups of people?
Well, we were both, really.
Both.
He had his group of friends, I had my group of friends. At the time, they actually had some fraternities in high school.
Oh, wow.
And we were a part of a fraternity together,
Okay.
along with some of the sports things that we did.
That's fun. I know you were into sports. You did baseball, football, basketball, all the traditional boy sports in high school.
Mm-hmm.
Were you good at any of them?
Decent. My dad was a coach of our baseball teams.
Okay.
So that was a lot of fun, and sometimes it was not always fun, but
Right.
but most of the time it was.
Yeah.
But yeah, we share that together.
That's good. That's fun. And so you were the peacekeeper. Your brother was a little bit of the mischief maker, and you were all into sports, all 3 of you.
Yeah.
That's good. And Greenville being what it was, you could probably, I'm not going to say you could be a big fish in a small pond, but you were probably a big fish in a medium pond.
Actually, our high school was so big. I had almost 650 people in my graduating class. So I was really just a small fish in a big pond.
Oh, that's a bigger
in my
school than I
view.
thought.
Oh, yeah, it's a huge school.
Wow.
Huge
Okay.
school. Yeah.
What do you remember most about high school?
Well, let's see. I remember we had a little circle of friends that we ran around with, and I remember in high school getting injured trying out for the varsity team. I think it was my sophomore year.
The football team?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and going to having to heal up from that and getting into music, starting to take guitar lessons. After that.
That's a switch. So you were injured badly enough not to continue football.
Right, had a back injury.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
that's serious.
Well, felt like it at the time.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
So, and I'm sure you remember that very vividly.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody ran into you, or how did that happen?
they have a drill, and they probably still do it in football, where you do bull in the ring, where you hit.
Bull in a ring?
Bull in
That
the ring.
doesn't sound good.
No, it doesn't sound good. Where you stand in there and people hit you, you have to kind of
From all directions?
Yes,
Oh.
different directions. So we played that, and I lost. So
That's terrible. And
wasn't
were you
long.
hurt bad enough that you had to go into physical therapy and all of that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
That's bad.
chiropractor, physical
And
therapy,
so
that
your
kind of
dad
thing.
said, "That's it, son."
No, actually, he was okay with me going back. I said that's it.
Oh, you said that's it. I don't blame you. No
yeah.
more for me. Thank you.
Anyhow. But that's when music kind of came into my life a little
Yeah,
bit more.
because when was
anyhow.
that? The 70s, 60s, late 60s, early 70s?
That's a good question.
Era of good music, in other words?
Oh, yeah, it was always great music. So it's probably in 67.
Perfect timing
Yeah.
to segue into music because I know I'm of course not biased when I say this, but that is the best music ever is the late 60s.
Mm-hmm.
And of all genres of the late 60s. I love that music.
Yeah, it was a lot of
So
fun.
music became, you're right, in the mid 60s, music became really important, especially to kids. You know, the kids a lot older than we were, had big band, and that was kind of their thing. And then in the 60s. So you segued into music from there. Were you in the band or anything like that?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, we started a little band probably in 10th grade. None of us had played that long, but
But you were all in the high school band also?
No. We didn't play in the high school band. I mean, a little rock and roll band. A little.
Now, how do you start a rock and roll band if you haven't been in? You had taken music
Well, I was
lessons.
taking music lessons,
Okay.
and I met a good buddy of mine was a drummer.
Okay.
In fact, he was in a couple of bands. In fact, we had a band together, and then we had another band later on called Salt and Pepper, which was the first black and white band in Greenville back in the 60s.
You mean the first integrated? Like
Yes,
y'all weren't
first-
dressed black and white?
No, we were.
You were the first
you know,
integrated band.
Exactly. We were kind of half and half.
Wow.
So it was really a lot of fun. We played soul music back then. And actually the drummer, he's still a friend of mine, went on to become a U.S. congressman and a U.S. senator.
Wow.
Jim DeMint.
Oh, wow.
And so,
Okay. So Jim DeMint started as a musician too, and then
he did.
he went into politics.
And he went into politics. Actually, went into advertising, and then later he had his own advertising company, and then he went into politics.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. The first time I saw you and Drew Ann in Hart County was when you were playing in a band with Jerry Evans and Jerry Norton. Mm-hmm. And I think it was at Katichi, but I can't really remember.
It was the Fabulous Reflections.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, yeah, that was a lot of fun.
And so when I first saw you, and I guess Bo and I met you there, I just assumed you were a musician.
Well, that's a compliment.
You are a musician, but I had no idea that you were also a licensed family therapist and a psychologist, and all. You had this whole other career. Mm-hmm. So that's interesting. But so that's how I first met you and Drew Ann. What musical instrument did you start with when you first started with your bands?
Started with guitar. Have stayed with that.
And how did you learn to play the guitar? You had lessons.
Oh, I took lessons for a year. I wish I'd kept them up, but because you never stop learning. But fundamentally, took lessons for about a year.
Okay.
I used to practice 2 hours a day since I wasn't, playing sports.
Right. Right.
So that it was, it came pretty quickly.
And you are an excellent guitarist.
Well, thank you.
play a mean lead guitar, I can tell you that. So, but you got a little garage band going with your buddies. Mm-hmm. That must have been fun.
It was a lot of fun. The neighbors didn't like it, but we loved it. We used to play down at the country club occasionally. For one of the guys had parents were a member of a country club, so they would have their parties upstairs and they would have all the kids downstairs. So
I can see this. I can see high school friends in a band at a country club, and tell me the chicks were not digging y'all, because I'm sure they were. All the girls in school. First, they liked the sports guys, but also they liked the musicians too, right?
Well, that at that particular time we were playing for a bunch of 12 and 13-year-olds, so that didn't matter a whole lot to us at that point. But later on, it probably made a more impact on us. We enjoyed it a little bit more.
So where'd you go from Wade Hampton?
Clemson. Went to Clemson University. Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. And then did you know when you were at Clemson that you wanted to study psychology?
What happened in high school is they offered to a group of people a new course that had never been offered before, and it was a psychology course. And I was asked by one of the teachers, would you be interested in taking this? And I said, sure, I'd love to. Sounds like it'd be a lot of fun. And so there was a small group of maybe 25 or 30 of us that took that course, and it was the first time I ever had taken a course where I thought to myself, this would be really fun to do.
This
as
makes
a profession.
Sense. Yeah, this made sense to you.
It made it just clicked. Everything, all the dots connected for me, and so that's kind of where it started in high school. And then at the time, psychology wasn't one of the top majors for undergraduates as it is now, but and so then when I started at Clemson, I went there, and but then I realized, nobody told me this, that you couldn't usually just take a psychology degree and do what I wanted to do. You'd have to go to graduate school. It's like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, they don't tell you those things.
No, or at least I didn't ask the questions, but yeah.
That's funny. Well, you kind of think of psychology as the basis for everything.
Many ways, yeah.
Yeah, because if you're going to do any kind of customer service or sales or anything like that, you have to understand the people that you're working with. So I think psychology would be a good, well-rounded kind of thing. But you say that's tough to get a job coming out of school with psychology, huh?
It is nowadays. I know my oldest son went through psychology, and now he is in sales with a technology company. But it was great for him learning people and, how to present himself. And
yeah, exactly. I would think so.
Yeah.
When you were at Clemson, did you continue playing in your bands?
As a matter of fact, played in a band that was around for 40 years. I don't know if they're still playing, but they were a group that had been around called the Ninth Row. They played. They had so many different members over the years.
The Ninth Row. What does that signify? Is there a Ninth Row?
It's a street in England. I think they had gone to England and saw that and thought, what a great name for a band. So anyhow, I played with them for a while, and we booked with Hit Attractions out of Charlotte, and so we played every weekend. So
you were like semi-professional at this point. You were getting booked for things and got paid for things.
Yeah, really. I mean, even back then, I don't know what bands could make now, but I know then we were making easily $500 a night.
What?
And we had a manager.
But you had to split that among.
Yes, but that was a lot of money back in the 70s.
That's still a lot of money.
Yeah,
you're right. It is.
We had a manager who went with us. We had a driver who set up our equipment. It was really a lot of fun.
So that trajectory from 10th grade, getting back injury, starting in guitar, that was a quick ramp up into semi-professional work as a musician.
Well, we thought we were going to try to make it, and we actually submitted some music to Columbia Records. At the same time, another group in Spartanburg submitted some things to Columbia, and they accepted them, and their name was Marshall Tucker.
Marshall Tucker Band.
The Marshall Tucker Band from Spartanburg.
Okay, so it's either the Ninth Row or Marshall Tucker.
Well, it could have been both.
History might have been very different.
It might have been.
Just a little incremental difference there might have made a huge difference. That's amazing. So, and you continued to play, I guess, throughout the state?
We continued to play. At one point in time, the band shifted in what it wanted to do, because we played all, mostly Chicago and Blood, Sweat, and Tears music, that kind of thing. So we had a 9-piece horn band.
Oh, wow.
I mean,
That's cool.
It was really a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And then some of the guys wanted to do, that was the day of the Allman Brothers and Southern Rock started coming out, and some of them wanted to split off and just do just Southern Rock exclusively. So the band broke up briefly, and they went off in one direction. And actually, again, you think doors closed but others open, and it was really a blessing in disguise, because my grades at Clemson were in the tank at the time for being gone every week.
Well, I was wondering how you did that, because when you're in a band, it's not like you play at 5 p.m. and you're done at 7 and then you're in bed by 9:30. You're out half the night cleaning up, getting your equipment packed up, and then driving back home. That's a late night. That's tough.
Oh goodness, yeah. We traveled 4 or 5 hours, set up, play, break it down, travel wherever we were going next for the next night. So
wow, that's a tough
work.
Schedule for a college person.
Yeah.
Was there ever a time when you said to your mom and dad, hey, this band thing's going pretty good, I might just drop this psychology and be a professional musician?
Well, no, I never said that, because I knew that I really needed to finish school. I was the first person in my family who went to college, or finished college, I should say.
Okay.
So I knew that was something I really wanted to do and needed to do and was expected to do. So, I mean, if the other had happened, certainly I would have taken that opportunity, but it never was afforded to me, so I just stayed with it. But I did actually drop out after a while, because my grades got so bad. And took a little breather, kind of got grounded, came back, and that's when I met my to-be wife.
Okay, tell us about meeting Drew Ann.
So Drew Ann is my wife. We've been married for 44 years.
44 years, wow.
44, yeah.
And she is so lovely.
Well, I tried to get her to come. She's a behind-the-scenes person, but she's a whole lot more interesting than I am, and much more animated and conversational. But, anyhow, I'll just talk about it since she's not here.
That's right.
So basically, it was kind of a love at first sight thing. I never really tell people that in my
Did
profession.
you believe in love at first sight? Was that something you ever thought?
I never really thought about it,
No?
but she thought the same thing I thought when
So
we
it
first met.
happened for both of you.
Yeah, I saw her walking across the campus. She'd already seen me in the dining room, which I found out later. And I was wondering why she was so friendly to me. So anyhow, so we got to talking and I asked her out and she turned me down. She already had a date.
Oh.
But she did say, call me back.
Okay.
So I did 2 days later and she
That
said
may
yes.
have been good because you might have thought, oh, well, she's very attractive. I better really kind of make an impression and try hard, right?
Yeah.
So maybe that was good that she had another plan. So she was also enrolled at Clemson.
She was a freshman at the time and I was a junior.
And you were a junior.
Yeah.
Okay. So she saw you in the dining room. Does she remember talking to you? Did y'all have a conversation, did she think?
So what happened is she was there the first week with her mother sitting in the dining room, and apparently I walked past and she noticed or noted that to her mom.
Aw,
And
look at that handsome fellow walking across the dining room.
and then a couple of days later I saw her walk across campus and said, gosh, who in the world is that? So I need
Is
to
that a
meet her.
God thing? That's just
It
so,
seemed to me like it was.
Yeah.
It anyhow, I walked up to her a few days later in the dining room when I saw her again and asked her out. I was sitting with a friend of mine. I said, you know, I'm going to go up and get some chocolate milk because she was over there. I could see her. So anyhow, it was. You know,
Oh, she said, I'm going to go over there and get some chocolate milk. And so you walked over to the chocolate milk and
absolutely.
you said,
I said, I hope I'm not being too forward, but I wondered what your name was. So.
yeah.
And she told me, and I told her,
And you met.
and then I asked her out, and
Very
she said she was busy.
straightforward. No
It was.
games, just,
No,
hey, what's your name?
no line, just.
No, hey, baby, what are some of the lines? I don't know. No pickup lines, nothing like that. Just a very straightforward approach, which I'm sure she appreciated. So you did ask her out, and you did call her back.
Yeah.
And then you did end up going
And
on.
then
Where'd
we
you go on
went
the
out.
first date? You remember?
You know, it was the first week of school, and generally then at Clemson they would have different band parties or venues where students could get together and meet. And so we just went there and hung out on campus, and that was,
Just kind of an informal date.
yeah, just kind of hung around a lot of other people, really.
Did you end up talking a lot on the date, or just
Oh, yeah,
listening to music? Or
absolutely.
and she is from the South Carolina area?
No, actually, she is from Jupiter, Florida. She was one of
Florida, that's
the
right.
original 5 families that founded Jupiter, Florida.
Wow.
Yeah, and
Gosh, she goes way back there then.
she does. And at least her families do. In fact, they have the original house of the Tyndall family, which is where she came from, at the Jupiter Lighthouse state grounds. They relocated it there. So yeah, her mother was I think the great grandmother of those people.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
So
And how did she end up at Clemson?
well, she picked it out of a book.
Oh.
And her father had just passed away of cancer, and they had sent her on a trip to Europe for a graduation present. And before she left, she picked it out of a book. She got accepted at the last minute, and it was when you say it's a God thing, it makes you wonder.
Yeah, when you look back on it, what were the odds?
Yeah, she'd never even been there before.
Wow. So you started dating her when she just started college, and you were almost finishing up. You had 2 years left.
Had about 2.5 years left, and we got married after I graduated.
Okay.
And then moved to, after spending the summer at her mom's house, we moved to Gainesville.
Okay.
Kind of started a whole new,
Yeah, new chapter.
yes, a new
And
chapter.
she finished up at UF?
She's a nurse. She's an oncology nurse.
Okay.
And she finished at Florida and then went to work doing chemotherapy there
Oh, wow.
in Gainesville.
Important work.
Yes.
And then you started your master's program there. Okay.
yeah.
That's good. And so did you still continue your music in Florida, or were you just too busy with...
Well, I did with the church that we were attending there. They had a choral group, and they also had a bluegrass group, and they also had a little kind of popular music group. And we would do, and the musicians of the church would get together and put together different programs, like for let's say the annual banquet that we might have, or the college students would have, or some, we might play for a retreat, or occasionally we'd do something on campus.
So you kept one hand in the music at that point, still on the guitar.
Still on the guitar.
Okay.
And singing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the types of music just varied, I guess. Was the church big or small? Or?
It was a pretty big church, probably 1,000 young people.
And mostly young.
Mostly college students.
Okay,
yeah.
college students. Well, that's nice. And did you feel you fit in Gainesville, Florida, or did you just know this is temporary?
Well, Clemson is one of those communities where it's small, or it was then. It was like 7,000, 8,000 people. And when you go to a large school like Florida that was 35,000 at the time, you just are lost. So we had made a lot of friends while we were there, because we were there for a long time.
So after you finished at UF, did you want to hightail it out of Florida, come back up towards Clemson, or where'd you go from there?
Well, they asked me to work a year before applying to the doctoral program.
Okay.
So I got a job at a hospital and worked there for a couple of years and applied to the program. So I was really kind of acclimated to Gainesville at the time. And so we really ended up staying there for 13 years.
Oh,
so,
wow, you did stay there a while.
Yeah. So,
did you feel when you were doing your 1 year's work, did you feel like you knew you were on the right track career-wise? Enjoyed it? Did anything stick out from that year? Something you didn't expect, maybe?
Well, it was, actually, I worked in a prison, so
wow.
That, aside from being taken hostage once, that kind of stands out to me.
Yeah.
I think God was protecting me then, too.
Oh, my gosh.
Anyhow, but yeah, it was an interesting
Was it
experience.
one of the people you were treating?
Yes.
Were you allowed to talk about that?
I don't see why not.
And so the person just grabbed you and held you and said...
Well, there were two guys who wanted to break out. They wanted to get the director of my particular unit. But since I was the assistant director and he wasn't around, I was good enough. They were going to use me as the hostage to get out.
Oh, they were trying to get out is why they did
Yes.
that.
Yeah, it was a maximum security forensic hospital for the criminally insane.
Oh, my.
Yes, so it was pretty...
That might have made me think about music again, just saying.
Well, I knew I didn't want to stay there. I knew I wanted to get the experience and move over to the mental health center and ultimately get into private practice, which is kind of a track that a lot of people took back then.
Yeah,
but
makes sense.
that was a job in town. All right, it was just opening up, and it was a great experience. I'll never forget it.
Imagine it was as rewarding as it was in that frightening moment.
Sure, exactly. You got to see a different part of the population that you might not really know exist.
Boy, that's one way of cutting your teeth in the profession.
That's when I knew that I was working my guardian angel overtime.
Yeah, I'll say. Wow.
Yeah.
And how long were you held hostage by this person?
Well, probably only about 15 minutes.
But it seemed like
about a week.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Did he hurt you?
No.
I assume it's a he. I don't know.
No, we were, at the time they had individual cells. They were really rooms. And his plan was I'm not sure what his plan was, but at the time, I'm not exactly sure why it turned around the way that it did, but he generally got pretty excited when people panicked. And instead of panicking, I just scolded him about, he needed to open the door, he needed to get back where he was supposed to be.
Did you have the presence of mind? I guess you study that and kind of prepare for that kind of thing.
I'm not sure. Maybe we studied it. It just seemed instinctive at the time.
Yeah. So you didn't want to give him what he wanted by getting excited and having him feed off of that. You just
And for whatever
stayed
reason,
calm.
it confused him so much that he just complied.
Wow.
I don't, to
You
this
see
day,
that on the
know.
movies when somebody pulls a gun and you're like, put that gun down, and then they do. You're like, whew, who would do that? But you thought to do that in the moment, just being calm. And that passed. Did you tell Drew-Ann about that?
I did. And immediately after it was over, every bone in my body was shaking.
Oh, I bet.
But yeah, she wanted me to leave after
I'm
that.
sure.
So.
But that, good experience. And then, so you spent that year and you went back into the doctoral program.
Yes.
And then were you also, you said, working in a mental hospital or mental unit of a hospital?
Actually working at the mental health center there in Gainesville. And
That must have been rewarding too.
very rewarding. It helped prepare me for private practice because you get to see a lot of different people, and
I'm sure.
we had I had both the adult and aging units there, so
Okay.
it was a great experience.
I bet. That's good. And then the doctoral program probably took a little while.
Mm-hmm.
And then were you in private practice in Gainesville, or was that more of the hospital type?
Well, once I graduated, I went into private practice for
Okay.
about a year, maybe 2, with a group of people that I worked with at the mental health center. We all kind of went out and practiced together.
Okay.
But Drew Ann, who had been a cheerleader at Clemson, and
Wait, you left that whole thing out.
I did. Okay.
I'm just kidding. We'll go back and talk about that.
Okay.
So, but Drew Ann, you said.
Yes, we had come to Atlanta for a Georgia Tech game, a Clemson Georgia Tech game, where she was cheering.
Okay.
And we liked the city so much, we said, why don't we eventually, when we get married, why don't we move here?
Yeah.
So that was always our goal, to end up in Atlanta. And so we did that.
That's great. That's a good plan. Okay, so going back to Drew Ann, you didn't mention she was a cheerleader. She was a cheerleader at Clemson.
Mm-hmm.
How awesome.
It was.
So you sat there in the stands at football like, that's my girlfriend. That's...
Yeah, that's what I would do.
Okay, well, that's nice. Anything else we need to know about Drew Ann, other than she's fabulous? And
Well, she is fabulous. I mean, she was, and again, she'll be upset for me saying this because she was also Miss Clemson there. Yeah.
why would she be upset about that? I'd have a banner. If I was Miss UGA, I'd have a banner back here. That is cool.
Yeah.
I don't doubt that one bit, because she is so beautiful and charming, and just, I can totally see that. But that is cool. I'm glad you said that, because that gives her a little shout out
There you go.
that we need to know. So that's good.
That may be one of the reasons why she wouldn't come, so she probably knew I would say it.
Yeah, she might. That's okay. So now you're in Atlanta, right?
Mm-hmm.
You moved to Atlanta. And tell me about Atlanta. What struck you about Atlanta? Y'all probably raised your kids there.
As a matter of fact, we had our kids in Gainesville, and then really just shut the practice down in Gainesville, went up to Atlanta, found another group who was willing to accept me, and just started over again.
Wow, that was bold.
Back in '87, but I was in my late 30s, and my philosophy was I'm still young enough to fail a couple of times, so if this doesn't work out, then we'll figure out something else to do.
Did you see yourself as a, say, 38-year-old as this practitioner with children, or did you always think you were going to be musician, astronaut, helicopter pilot?
Well, I mean, I knew I was going to stay in that profession. The other really had been more or less left behind. So.
In Atlanta, did you connect with some musicians?
I'm trying to think of what we did. I think that was a little bit of a quiet time. We had a basement, so I had musical equipment set up down there, and I could play. And actually, the boys and I started playing together.
Oh, that's nice.
So that was a lot of fun.
Did you teach them, or did they get lessons?
Well, they both took piano for several years, so they were already really pretty proficient in music. And then they liked the guitar when they started becoming close to teenagers. Mm-hmm. And they both had, together, several bands that they played in over the years.
Oh, that's fun.
And so.
How does the piano translate to guitar for them? Do you remember? Was it easy? If they could master one, could they then pick up the other pretty easy?
Because they had the theory, which is really so important, they were really able to do it pretty easily.
Okay.
And they still both play.
Do they still
several
play?
Instruments, actually.
When you get together for holidays, do y'all jam on the guitar?
Sometimes. Actually, during this
fun.
Christmas, I listened to both of them play in my son's house.
How fun.
Yeah.
And do they sing as well?
Mm-hmm.
They do, so the three of you can sing. Does Drew Ann sing? I know she doesn't.
She and I have done some things together.
Yeah?
Yeah.
That's good. How fun. But she doesn't play a musical instrument.
She doesn't, but she helped them with her piano lessons, so she
yeah,
really
so
kind
she
of
kinda
can read
does.
music, even though she doesn't really play regularly.
cool.
But I will say she played second trumpet in high school.
We'll see. So she did have some musical beginnings.
That's right.
Well, that's good. Well, I would love to hear y'all sing together sometime. That would be really awesome. Darn it. If I had thought this through really good, I would have had you bring in the guitar, and you and Drew Ann could have sung something. Been cool. She would never have agreed to that, would she?
She would never have agreed to that.
I didn't think so. Oh well. Okay, so now you're in Atlanta, and your private practice is going well. Kids are growing up. You're probably super busy. Drew-Ann's probably super busy with the family and all of that. How did you get to Hartwell? Were you weekending at that point, or how did you know about Hartwell? How did you get here?
So, of course, I knew about Hartwell being in Greenville, and I always wanted to be here. I wanted to have a place here. Sure.
You were at Clemson.
And really, some of my fraternity brothers and I would sneak off and skip class and come up here and go skiing at Hartwell.
Well, yeah.
During the school year. I mean, that was a lot of fun. So, of course. But in 2001, at the dot-com burst, remember when the economy tanked?
Yeah.
Everybody lost money then, and we said, why don't we quit putting money in the stock market and go find a place in Hartwell, because we had two good friends that we met at the University of Florida, Joe and Vicki Hoffman, who live here.
Yes.
And they have had a place up here forever.
Okay.
Even though they lived in Atlanta. He was an architect at the time. And so we used to bring the kids up here and take their pontoon out. And so from the time they were all very small, all our kids grew up together. Yeah. So we knew we wanted to eventually be up here, but we decided at 2001 we had been looking for actually 3 or 4 years for a place. And then when that happened, it just forced our hand, and the lake was down 18 feet that year.
Oh, yeah.
And we stumbled on this place that was available, where we live now over in Reed Creek.
Was it near Joe and Vicki?
Well, they're over off of in Hartwell, off of Ridge Road.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So they're over there with the Mewborns, and so they're all neighbors. Okay. And this particular place was a newly developing neighborhood, or one that had actually failed during that time, and so there was
so many of them did.
Yeah.
And the lake being down didn't help, but that was pretty opportunistic.
It was. We were very fortunate.
Yeah.
So we came and found this place, and bought it then, and we were just weekenders for the longest time. But
which is pretty easy from Peachtree Corners to come up. Sure. Just shoot up 85 and you're here pretty quickly. And the kids probably enjoyed the weekends coming up too.
Well, by then, they were both starting to graduate from high school. Okay. So they liked it at first. They certainly loved it in the summer times, but they weren't always interested in coming. Yeah,
because by that time, they had activities every weekend probably they were doing. Yeah. And then that would be a getaway for you and Drew-Ann at that point.
It was.
Yeah, good. How fun. And so you always knew, but did you think you would be this old dude by the time you moved here? Or did you plan, okay, we're going to move there when we are?
Well, no. We had hoped to retire here. That's exactly what we were thinking about doing. But in the meantime, my father in Greenville, my mother and father in Greenville, was diagnosed with Parkinson's.
Oh. Okay.
So he did fine for a long time. He played golf regularly. He's a very active, athletic guy. But in 2011, Drew-Ann said, why don't we just move up here before he starts deteriorating?
To be
and you can relocate your practice to Athens, because that will, be a commute from Hartwell, but Hartwell's only an hour from Greenville.
Right.
And we could be there a lot sooner, because I have my youngest brother is still in Lawrenceville, so it was really a long haul for either one of us to try to get up here.
Right.
So we went ahead and did that, and we moved up here full time in 2011. Moved to practice, got it going, and that's when my father started having some problems, and so we were there, and we were able to kind of be there for him until he passed away back about 5 years ago.
But wasn't that great, though, to be so close by?
It was, absolutely. And we still go to Greenville regularly and see my mom, so she's still fine and doing well, living on her own.
Good. Well, you'll have to send her a copy of this so she can.
Well, I guess I will.
That's great. And it's nice to be that close. And, being close to family is definitely one of the reasons we moved up here as well. Plus, our kids were little, and they just had a ball up here when we'd come up on the weekends. And then we'd go back to Atlanta, and we would find them playing in the middle of the street and be like, ah! But they just always wanted to be outside climbing trees and playing and stuff like that. So it was a win-win for us.
We have a couple of neighbors who moved here from larger cities with young kids, like the Honiotises as an example. They moved here because they wanted to be away from the city and in an environment like this for their kids.
Yeah.
There are neighbors, John O'Neill,
Yes,
Bobby
John
Ducey,
Bobby, yes. Uh-huh.
Kay and Ken True Love. So we all have,
You have good neighbors.
an unusually cohesive neighborhood that gets along and does things together on a regular basis.
Isn't that
So,
awesome?
yeah, it is. It's great.
When you moved here in 2011, was it hard to move your practice to Athens? Because reestablishing yourself at 30-something is one thing, but reestablishing later in life, of course, you had these compelling reasons to move up this way. Was that difficult to reestablish in Athens?
Well, since I had started over in Atlanta, started to practice in Gainesville, started over in Atlanta, there was some fairly tried and true kinds of things to do to make that happen. And Athens is a perfect place to be because it's got so many surrounding counties. You probably couldn't go any further north if you want to have a full-time practice. You could do that partially in a couple of different places, but Athens was perfect, and really it was busy within a year. So
It's a great.
I have no
love it.
regrets.
Yeah, good, good. Was it hard to commute every day?
Well, an hour and 15 minutes one way every day is a little rough. So that's 2 hours and a half on the road.
2.5 hours on the road.
Yeah.
But on December 21st, was it the 20th or 21st?
20th.
A big thing happened.
Yes, that was the day I retired. It was my last day at work. And actually today is my first day of retirement, officially, because the Christmas holidays have kept me busy. I really haven't had a chance to slow down.
I feel so fortunate to have gotten you so quickly out of your retirement, because most people would shut the blinds and the doors and be like, don't talk to me, let me relax. But thank you for being so quick to agree to come on.
Thank you for asking me. It's a whole lot easier doing something like this than sitting with 8 or 10 appointments every day.
Well, I can believe that. That would be trying. But the hour and 15-minute commute every day, I'm sure that's something that you will not miss.
I won't miss it, although I got a lot done during that hour and 15 minutes.
How do
Made
you
phone
get
calls,
stuff done? Oh, yeah, on the phone.
Dictated and wrote a whole book in a year.
Wait. I forgot to point out that you're an author of 3 books.
Right.
So how do you dictate? Talking to a tape recorder all the way to work and all the way back?
Well, there's lots of different ways to do it. You can dictate, you can make little bullet point notes on a tablet next to you.
When you're driving?
I'm driving on 172, where I think the only things I encountered most of the time were chicken trucks and log trucks, but really not much traffic on those roads. And I would leave at 8 after the school traffic had died down.
Yeah,
get
because
there at
that's school
9,
traffic. Yeah.
And start at 9:30, so it wasn't too bad.
It wasn't too bad. So you dictated a whole book in your commute. Now that's the way to use your time wisely.
Exactly.
I'm very
At least the outlines of it, filling in other parts of it on the weekend.
Most of the time, I drive to Atlanta for work every week, but not every day. And I just turn on the radio. I don't think about using that time productively. So that's a good idea.
Yeah, it's amazing how much you can do when you kind of put your mind to it.
You get a little coffee in you and you get going. And
it's a great time when I started playing with the praise band at Hartwell Methodist.
Yes.
It's a great time to listen to the music.
Yes, that's true.
There and back, learning the songs, learning the music, memorizing how things went. So that's what I've been doing really the last 6 months.
I was glad to see you at the 10 o'clock service. You were behind the fake Christmas tree, but it was still good to see you.
I was back there.
But that's really nice that you were playing with them. How long have you been playing with this is the Hartwell First Methodist Church, the 10 o'clock service.
Yes, about 6 months.
Which has such a fabulous band. And
they
your
are
bandmates.
Yeah, Justin Barrett, Marshall
Walker is on bass, and
Jeff Adams, Dixie Dennis
on keyboards,
Jack Cordy on the drums.
That's a
really fine group of guys and women.
Yes,
and we have a lot of fun. We get together and we send the music out digitally, electronically, and we have it by generally about Tuesday, and then we learn the music, and he sends everything out to our iPads, and we have that in front of us. So
nice.
We just have to practice it, and then we meet at 8:30 before the 10 o'clock service and put the show together.
That's nice.
Yeah.
It's a good way to stay in music in your retirement. Do you think you'll do more music in your retirement?
Probably.
I hope so.
Well, we have played together, for those of you who may not know.
Yes, we have.
I guess the first year we played for a benefit, we were April Fools.
Yes.
And then last year we were Deep Fried.
Yes.
And this year will probably be deep fried again.
Yes, with bandmates. I think Barry Vahaley came up with the deep fried name, right?
He did.
Hutch Hutchinson on vocals and guitar. Bill Pratt on drums and vocals. And Marshall Walker on bass.
Dixie Dennis
on keyboards. And,
Carl
Oberg on guitar and vocals.
Yeah.
It's a fun group.
It is a fun group.
And I hope we do a lot this year with that. Just the rehearsals are so much fun.
They are a lot of fun.
And if you can play a benefit.
And don't forget Tina on the keyboards and vocals. You got to listen to her sing.
And that's really fun. And if you can make it a fun party and raise some money for a nice group, that is really a win-win.
Perfect.
Because I love that. So I do hope that we get to do that again this year. You're doing something else in retirement that might surprise some people, but and that is you showed up today at the Y and played pickleball.
Yes, John O'Neill and Pat and Monty Harper and who else? Helene Brown. A number of people have been trying to get me to come, and I said, sure. I used to play tennis in Atlanta, so.
Because you're athletic. You grew up being athletic, and then you played in Atlanta, you say, with tennis.
Yeah. So it's a lot different than a tennis ball. It doesn't bounce quite as high. And so people take advantage of that, I can see already. But it was a lot of fun. I started off, played a couple hours today, and I think I'll continue. You
and Drew Ann stay so fit. You're so young, and when you think of somebody who's retired, you think of some bent-over, shuffling old person who's just, But you and Drew Ann are the epitome of fitness. What do you do to stay fit?
Well, what we've done for the last 7 years is we get up at 6, have a cup of coffee, then we work out. We have a study on the house that has an elliptical bike and a treadmill and weights and other kinds of things. So we spend 30 to 45 minutes on that. Then we go have another cup of coffee. Then I get ready and go to work.
Every morning.
She goes to Joby Size. She has for years.
Joby Size. He should copyright that. That's awesome. This is Joby Scroggs weightlifting class.
Yes, Joby Scroggs weightlifting class. So she goes on Mondays and Thursdays, which I'm going to start that as well.
Okay.
And then she has a group that she calls the Cats, and they get together at Katichi and they lift weights on Wednesdays. That's what she did today. So, and then we walk our street, which is about a mile, and a half maybe, and all the way around. And so those are the kinds of things to do. And I love to do yard work.
You do?
I enjoy getting out there. And, it's a shift from cerebral to physical.
It is, you're right.
I may not love it now, but...
Well, and Bo said the same thing, that, when the kids would complain about a chore, he would go, you just don't know. Being able to just rake leaves in peace after being on the deadline at work or something like that.
Yeah.
So when you are able to do it occasionally, it's a fun thing to do. So, I don't know, retirement. What else? Because, as I said, you and Drew Ann are just the epitome of health and retirement. So what kind of plans do you have?
Well, we've been members at Katichi for years.
So you're golfers.
Play golf with Joe Hoffman and John Rhodes a lot. Okay. And we played with Woody Matthews. Joby has joined us. So we're trying to get some guys who will play regularly. And plus, Woody was telling me that there is a group that plays every Tuesday and Thursday. I'm going to try to get one of those days in. But so golf is something my father taught me when I was a kid, and I hated being out there because I'd rather be with my friends. But now, later in life, when I picked it back up, I realized how much I learned despite myself.
Yeah.
And it's, he was a big golfer. He played golf really until the week he went into the hospital and then went into a nursing home.
Wow, good for him. He was active too then. Your mom and dad, both pretty active, it sounds like. Did you play golf your whole life, or did you learn early and then drop it, then pick it up?
I learned early and then stayed away from it for years because it took too much time. When you have kids, it's just something that is not going to happen.
Yeah.
And then picked it up really when we came back up here to Hartwell because Joe Hoffman's a big golfer.
And Joe's retired too now, right? Retiring.
Bill Pratt, Joe Hoffman, your husband.
Yes, Bo retired this year. I think we need a party for all the retirees.
I think so.
That's good. I would love that. That would be good. Do you plan to do anything else in retirement, like write books or counsel, or are you going to use are you done with licensed therapy? And You want to hang that up?
I don't know. I mean, I love doing it. I didn't leave it because I was tired of doing it. It was just time to have the next chapter of my life.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether or not that'll happen or not. I don't have any definite plans to do really anything except the things that we've already mentioned. And we'll just see.
But you never know, as you said, when things might open up or what avenues might open up.
Well, that's right. And, my wife has been waiting for me for a long time to be around.
I'm sure.
So,
because you had a long work day.
yes. I
You
might
would leave
get
early
home
and get
at
home late.
7:30, 8,
Yeah.
8:30 sometimes.
So I'm sure she's happy to have you around now.
Yeah, well, I guess that time will bear that out, right?
No, I think it. And she's retired also?
She retired a couple of years ago.
No more nursing for her.
No
She's
more nursing.
retired. Well, she's done her service, I'm sure. And that's good. What kind of plans does she have for retirement?
Well, she's been pretty busy with the DDA here in town. She has her exercise routine that she has done. What else has she done? She has gotten involved with some things at church. And I'm sure I'm leaving out a couple of things. Yes, she's been pretty busy. I mean, when I'm gone all day, she's already got a schedule.
Oh, yeah.
And so I may have to interfere with that a little.
Do you think it'll be tough adjusting to retirement?
I'll probably have to gradually ease into it and not try to jump right into it. Like I went and played pickleball today for 2 hours and pulled 2 muscles in both my calves. So Joby turned around and said, "Slow down and take it easy," instead of going wide open. So, but we'll see.
Mentally, do you think you'll write another book, or do you think you'll do anything like that, or will you read more books maybe?
I may. It feels like I kind of check out when I'm writing a book and I'm not emotionally present, because it takes so much time and energy.
Yeah, I imagine that it does.
I do actually have one almost 3/4 written on marriage, but I may or may not ever really finish that.
Okay.
But it's material that I put together back about a year or so ago. But I don't really have a compelling reason to finish it, but who knows what will happen in the next year or two.
So I have a funny story for you.
Okay.
You have 3 books that you've published. One on parenting, one on a father-son relationship.
Right.
Is that right? And then a third one on overcoming infidelity, specifically as it relates to marriage.
Yeah.
And I expect that a lot of your counseling was along those 3 lines.
Yes.
Parenting, child-parent relationships, and then marriage. So I was lucky enough to be one of the people that you gave your book on overcoming infidelity to, and just because I happened to be in your circle of friends at the time, and I read a lot, and so I had it in the back seat with me to take to Atlanta because I knew I was going to be without TV or internet overnight, and I just wanted something to read, and I picked up a car full of clients. That book's in the back, and they're like, "Oh, your book's back here." And I thought, "Oh, don't worry about it. Just put it under the seat." And I didn't think until later when one of my friends who was in the car said, "Is everything okay?" I'd never even thought about what it said. I just hadn't thought of it. I was reading it from the standpoint of my friend wrote this. Oh gosh,
but I would not have known that. But you're right.
I did find it to be applicable to many relationships in life, not just husband-wife, but parent-child, friend-friend, all kinds of things, because it deals with how to overcome a break of trust and then building that back up. So I found that, whether you're in business with somebody and you need to kind of patch things up, or a friendship or something, so I found it to be really useful for a broad application of things. So.
Well, it was fundamentally written to help people affair-proof their marriage. All right, that was the first part of the book. How do you keep yourself out of trouble?
Right.
Watch the boundaries, do things to keep your marriage strong, stay connected. But then the last half of it was really about overcoming that when it did happen, and if it did happen. So you're absolutely right. I've heard that story from people before saying, I really would like a copy of your book, but I think I'm just going to download it on my iPad.
I know, because after that I thought, what am I going to do, sit in a coffee shop with this book? But yeah, I didn't even think about that. So that was pretty funny. But so you have your other book, 3/4 written, that may or may not ever. Now, without the long commute, how are you going to finish that?
I guess I'll just have to. I'll have to get permission from my wife to take some time out.
Yeah, I have written articles when I was in grad school. I did a lot of writing, and when you have an article or a book, I can't even imagine writing a book. You're right. It takes everything that you have, all of your focus, and you just lose track of time and place and everything else. So it's a tough thing to do. Somebody said one time, you should really write a book, and I thought, it'll kill me if I do.
Mm-hmm. Or Bo might.
Well, yeah, he might too, yeah. But that would be tough. Where from here? What have you learned? You've learned obviously a lot about people from the standpoint of being the guy in the chair, helping people, guide them through things. What that would make me think is that you're a pretty sensible guy. Sounds like you always have been since childhood. But do you ever find yourself in a place where you're like, I don't know where to turn? Do you ever find, or are you so knowledgeable about human relationships and solving problems that you're able to be your own therapist?
Well, I don't think anybody can be their own doctor or their own therapist. If you don't have good friends, if you don't have a faith, if you don't have a set of values and beliefs that you live by, then you're gonna. I think anyone is apt to drift from that. And
that's so good. Can we say that again?
Certainly. I'm not sure I can say it again, but I think the idea is, okay, go ahead.
Having friends that you can talk to, having faith,
being close to your spouse, because if they can tell you, if they're your best friend, then obviously they're willing to kind of say what they need to say if they see something that needs to be addressed. And being open. I mean, I think the problem with sometimes when we get older, we're not as open to change as we think we once were, but people can change their entire lives. You might not be able to change your personality, your fundamental personality, but people who are open to change can continue to incrementally be better. And of course, that depends on their philosophy of life too. What is it that what has been their purpose? What is their purpose? Now, when you don't have a career anymore, then what is your purpose? And that's really part of, I guess, what retirement brings about. But if you want to be a better person, if you want to make a difference, if you want to be a good family person, if you want to continue with friends, and you can't ever have too many friends, and if you want to make a difference in your community or wherever you are, then you're always needing to grow in whatever ways you as an individual, whatever those may be, need to keep working on that. Yeah.
That's good advice for 2019 for all of us, I think. To keep your stability, because one thing, when you get older, you realize how important it is to kind of keep your mental stability, to keep your positive outlook and things like that. And if life beats you up a little bit, there are a lot of people watching that may have lost a child, a husband, a wife, a parent, and they probably march through the holidays with a heavy heart.
Sure.
Into 2019. To get your toolbox, maybe this is a good time to pack your toolbox with all of the things that, and that's, I'm glad that you said that, to surround yourself with friends so that you're always able to stay social, which gets harder as you get older, to have a faith, to practice your faith, whether it's going to a church or prayer, spending time in prayer and things like that. And serving your community. That's a really good one. Because a lot of people sit home and they think, oh, poor me. I don't have anybody. I can't do anything. Oh my gosh, there's so much to do in this community. So many ways to plug in and volunteer. And
you're absolutely right. And Hartwell is such a great community. It's a small community, but it is a great community, and people are just fantastic here. I mean, I never would have imagined that a small town would have been such a pleasant experience, but it has been fantastic, and we're so glad we're here. And
same here.
So we really just want to give back and be a part of things if we could make a difference in whatever way the needs are, whatever those needs are.
We have such a dynamic community in Hartwell and we do have all the charm of a small town, but we're so dynamic with our people. And you just gave me the perfect close to the hour, which is that there are so many interesting dynamic parts to Hart County with our people. So, and I so appreciate you being one of those dynamic, awesome people that make this community so good.
Well, it's my privilege to have been able to get to know you and play music together and
yes, Here's to more of that.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Dr. Charles Williams joined us, and that was such a great hour. I look forward to seeing you next time, so join us again next week on Community Conversations.